welcome everyone to video 1.2. This is part 4 of 10 of the tax company PC scenario. I want a quick refresh as to where we were at so that everyone is grounded as to where we last left off. So at this point, we have sent over the email from the manager, who is Ted Trainee, to Trainee 1, who is the technician who's going to actually do the work. And here, Trainee 1 has now replied back to his manager, who is Ted Trainee, saying that this is exciting news, that he's looking forward to the kickoff call, and that he'll keep you updated if any questions or issues come up. So that's a good sample email to write back to your manager if your manager ever engages you on a project or whatnot. Then you want to send something saying that you acknowledge it and that you're interested in it. Maybe you don't have to go quite as far as you're saying excited about everything. That's what I like to do, but it's up to your style. You just have to acknowledge that you received it and that you are interested in doing the project. So at this point, if we look at our script, in a typical scenario, the manager, like he said, was going to set up a kickoff meeting, which will be a WebEx, which is just a video conferencing and audio conferencing tool that's really common in corporations. So at this point, the manager is going to send a invite to the trainee and also the customer. So let's do that. So at this point, the manager will log on to webex.com, which, by the way, I want you to actually do this, every one of you that are doing this video. You have to actually go to webex.com yourself. So from here, you're going to go into sign in, WebEx products. And we're going to use this Transcend ID, IT login, which is fine. In most companies, you're going to have some kind of corporate account that you can use. Maybe each team, like the help desk team, may have its own WebEx, things of that nature. So it's adrian.ratnayaka@transcendit-mn.org. Click next. And the password is, of course, time for work with a capital T, number 4, WORK, exclamation mark. Okay, so at this point, I'm doing this as the manager, Ted, because he's the one that's going to be engaging Bill, the customer, and Trainee 1, the technician that's going to be doing the work. So you have two choices. You can either do Meet Now, which is immediate, or you can actually schedule a meeting in advance. And generally, you'll be scheduling meetings in advance if you are engaging a customer. If you're troubleshooting an issue or something immediate, you might actually do Meet Now. In this case, we'll just go ahead and schedule one. So we're going to call it Kickoff Meeting dash Bill's Tax Haven. And it's for today's date. Now this time that I'm picking is something I'm just using right now. It's relevant because of the time that I'm recording this, but whatever time you're doing it, just pick a few minutes in advance, right? So it's 10:36 right now, so I'm picking, actually I'm going to change that to 10:39 p.m. And I'm going to make it, actually an hour is fine. You're better off actually making it longer than shorter. And so I'm going to have it be ted.trainee. Actually, yeah, that's fine. ted.trainee at transcendit-mn.org. So that's going to be one participant. I'm also going to have customer trainee01 at transcendit-mn.com. So remember, that one is a different domain because we had to use .com as a separate domain for these fake customers that we're using for this training purpose. So that one is actually .com. It's not a mistake. That's real. So customer.trainee01 at transcendit-mn.com. And then, of course, we also have trainee01 at transcendit-mn.org. So I'm going to add an agenda to this. So I'm just going to put this in here. This is a sample agenda, which is just basically things that we're hoping to cover in the meeting. So I want you to actually type this in to your agenda. So you can just literally pause it right here. All the same material that is right here is what's going to be in the agenda. So if you look over here, that's now in the agenda. And then I'm not going to attach any files. I'm not going to put in a password. You could have put a password in here. So I'm just going to click schedule it. So at this point, it's in the system, and you'll see that you've gotten a meeting invite right here. So normally what you would do is you would actually click join in here. All the different participants would join, and you see that you've got your audio connection here. So this is how you can join the call via audio, or you could join using your computer's speaker. So I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting, because before anyone can actually join, you have the person that is the meeting owner, or the person that started the meeting, which is Ted, would have to start the meeting before anyone else can actually join the meeting. So that's important to know. If you ever schedule a meeting but you didn't start it, that's not good, because no one else can actually start it. So in this case, since, obviously I'm the only freaking person on this whole scenario and I'm doing all of it, there's really no one I can call into this with. So just pretend that I called in. If I was going to call in using the computer, I would click this. If I want to actually call a phone number from my cell phone, I would call this number. Which, by the way, sometimes using the computer and dialing that way by doing voice over IP isn't always stable, because if you have a bad internet connection, let's say you're at a hotel and you don't have a very stable internet connection, then a lot of times I'll actually click more options and I'll say I will call in, and call in this way. So let's just pretend that, we sent this meeting. Obviously, if we look over at the customer's email, they also got this invite, right? So that invite that we sent would have worked. So, if the customer really was a different person besides me, they would have clicked this join button. And they would have joined the meeting. But in our case, it doesn't really make sense because we're all on one computer. So we'll just, pretend that everyone joined the meeting. So right now, normally you would have had, a list of you. It would have it would have had Bill, it would have had Trainee 01, everyone would have been on there. So this is just getting you introduced to WebEx. We're going to do other exercises with WebEx and all the different functions that WebEx has, so it's not a big deal. This is just to get you introduced to it in case you've never done it before. So at this point, we're going to do the role-playing thing, so I'm going to talk with different voices and whatnot. So it's going to be this voice, which is my normal voice as the manager, Ted. And then Bill, remember, Bill's this guy who talks really deep and sounds like this. So that's Bill. And then, Trainee 01, I had to think of something different. So I'm going to make Trainee 01 really nerdy sounding. So
Trainee 01 is going to talk a little bit like this. So, yes, Bill, that sounds perfect. Thank you.
So that's going to be Trainee 01. I'm just not that talented at accents, so that's the best I could do. Sorry, I guess, in the future we might have to hire actual actors, but for now, this will do. So at this point, we've got the WebEx up and running, and we're going to move forward to actually discuss, the agenda. So if we look at the agenda that we sent, typically, what's going to happen is the manager is going to introduce everyone, set the stage. So sets the stage literally means like, the manager is going to introduce everyone and kind of direct the whole meeting, but they're probably not going to talk as much, right? Because the whole point is the customer to meet the technician who's Trainee 01. So here we go. Hey everyone, is everyone on the call? I see that Bill has joined, and I see that Trainee 01 has joined. Yes, Bill's here. Nice to meet everyone.
Yes, Trainee 01 is here also.
Oh, great! I'm glad everyone could join. I'll hand this off to Trainee 01, and we'll touch base further on.
Yes, Bill, it's a pleasure to meet you. I just want to give you a quick introduction about myself. I'm one of the technicians at this company. Ted is my manager. He has explained to me the background here as far as what we're trying to do with this project. I have seen the emails and some of the correspondence that has occurred. So I'm very excited to move forward with this project. I will be your main point of contact as this project moves along. We'll be here for questions. If we have to, we will definitely engage Ted, but for the most part, I'm your guy. I'm going to help you to make sure this project moves along.
Well, that's great. It's a pleasure to meet you, Trainee 01. Interesting name. Your parents must have not been very creative.
Well, yeah, I get that all the time, actually. But yes, so I'm definitely excited to move forward. So like I said, at this point, I've gone through all the discovery information. As far as from a high level, I don't want to get in the weeds too much, but some of the things that I really would like to further discuss would be the corporate email and the corporate website. So before I can put a proposal together, I would need to know 100% if you are actually interested in moving forward with the website and the corporate email. Now, is that something you've had time to think about?
Well, you know what? I talked about it with some of my other future employees that are starting soon here, and we all kind of had a meeting and we decided that it actually would be really important to actually have a corporate website and corporate email.
Well, great. Yeah, that sounds good. One thing we will want to know is the actual domain. So I can go ahead and share my screen with you if you'd like.
Getting out of character here. So normally if you want to share your screen, you go share right here and you do my screen, which doesn't really make any sense here because I'm not actually sharing it with anyone, but just wanted everyone to know. And you will practice that. So at this point,
Trainee 01, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Here we go. Boom. So, Bill, do you see my screen here?
Why, yes, I do. Trainee 01, thank you very much.
So, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and go to this domain registrar, a very popular one called GoDaddy.com. So, yes, that's, Danica Patrick, the world famous race car driver. So, we're going to just do a quick search, if that's okay with you, for, let's say, something like BillsTaxHaven.com. Hey, Bill, you're in luck because a lot of times your domain won't actually be available, but in this particular case, it actually is, which is kind of cool, wouldn't you say?
Why, I don't know if I'd say it's cool, but, yeah, that's, nice, I guess. Thanks, Trainee 01. I actually didn't have it, picked out, but I guess, yeah, that is very straightforward. I mean, it's the name of the company, so if that, domain is available, let's do it.
So, yeah, I mean, as you can see on our screen, it's actually quite a nominal fee. So, just to have you look at some of the options, I'm going to click Add to Cart. And literally, that's, I mean, the only cost if you wanted to just kind of move forward with that alone. Now, there's a few extra things I wanted to just kind of throw out there. So, this privacy protection is actually kind of an important thing, if you ask me, because even though it's optional, it's something I recommend because otherwise you'd have your personal information that would be registered out on the internet when you register this domain as your name. So I would rather have privacy protection, which just means that if someone was to check your details, it would just show some very generic information. So it's just a nice feature. So I would say the $7.99 per year is a pretty good deal if you ask me. So is that something you're okay with?
Well, I guess, now that you put it that way, it's pretty cheap. I mean, $8. I think I'd be in a lot of trouble if I couldn't afford $8, right? Why am I even in business?
Ah, precisely. I didn't want to say it, but yeah. Thank you. So the next thing is, so you mentioned that you want corporate email. So, do you want to do just like a first name, like Bill, or do you want to do your first dot last? So it'd be Bill dot Hicks. Really, it's just up to you. There really is no right or wrong answer here. And I can show you a couple of different options. So this is all kind of tied into what you want to do overall. So it really depends on if you want to just do email or if you want to have other things like Macs involved, or do you want to have things like cloud backup, things of that nature. So let's just kind of go in order. Let's just first figure out if you're going to use just your first name or first at last type of thing.
Oh, yeah, let's just do the first name. I think we're a small company. We kind of like that small company feel. So it's just going to be Bill, and then I'll give you the other people's names, and we can just do that.
Perfect. That sounds great. So, if I was to go back to some of your requirements that I really saw from gleaning those emails and conversations you had with Ted, I would say that the best value for money nowadays is to use Office 365. And I say that because you need to get storage, because you'll have a lot of files and things of that nature. And honestly, you don't want to have to bother with storing that on a local computer and trying to back them up. You're better off just using Office 365 because all of that precious data is going to be stored on the cloud, and Microsoft is going to back all that up. And then you and your other 3 employees don't have to worry about anything, honestly. It's kind of nice. So, is that something that you're open to?
Well, it all depends on, the cost. So, yeah, I guess I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'm actually going to look up the Office 365 pricing. So, from this, I just wanted to see that you had the domain part figured out, and we know that we're going to be getting the, Bill's Tax Haven domain, so I'll take care of that. But now let's look at, I'm just going to go ahead and Google this. So, Office 365 pricing. And I'm just sharing this with you because I want to be as transparent and open as possible, really. So let's just take a look-see. Pricing plans. It's very easy to find this information these days, which is really kind of nice. So if we look at the business side, you can see there's a lot of different options, and really depends on what you want to do with it all. So, for example, the more basic type of connection, which would be just your Office 365 business, gives you all of the basic things you'd ever want. You've got your Outlook, you've got Word, Excel, PowerPoint. So I know that you had a older version that was on one of your old laptops, but because we're going to be installing new PC and potentially new laptops or whatnot, legally you do have to purchase the software, and I highly recommend Office 2016 because it's really nice and there's a lot of additional features and things of that nature. Now, you may be drawn to the $5 a month because you might be thinking, well, why in the heck do I want to spend the $3 more? Well, it's for a very good reason. It's because you don't get any of the additional software here. You'll only get the services. So you can get OneDrive, and OneDrive is just your storage on the cloud, so you can store your files, and Exchange is your email. So that is nice. However, you do not get any of the software. So there are many ways you can skin this cat. So there are ways you can get this particular package, and you can buy the software separately. But it really just depends on what you're looking for. So, for example, if I was to look at Microsoft Office 2016 pricing, you can see there's a bunch of different options here. So let me go ahead and click on this. So I'm going to go over to business here. Just taking a little bit here. Yeah, so here we go. For Office alone, which includes all of your Outlook, Word, Excel, so on and so forth, you're going to pay $229. Now, that seems like a lot of money, but if you think about it, this is a one-time cost, or so that's basically your, your capital expenditure or your capex would be. No, I don't want to talk to you actually. Sorry, Bill. So, your one-time cost or capex would be $229, but really then you don't have to spend any more money afterwards. Versus over here, it seems nice to spend $8 a month because then you don't have to spend any amounts of money really residually. But if you want to spend just a quick minute here, don't really know why I opened that. I was trying to open Excel. So just to show you a quick breakdown, let's say that you had Office 365 and you had the $8, actually let's just round up to $10 because there will be taxes and all that. But really, you take the number of months in a year, so let's say you have 12 months, and you just do a quick formula, so take that times that, and, so you're spending $120 every single year per person. So if this is, your number of users, so let's say you have four, because I believe you've got yourself and you've got three other people, so four people. So this is, the per person, but now if you take this, you equals this times that. So you're basically spending $480 every single year, but you only spend $120 a month, so it doesn't seem as bad. But really, if you take the total amount that you spend up front with this option, even though it looks really bad, you take the $229 and you divide that by, sorry about that, equals $229 divided by 12, you're really only spending, $20 a month if you were to average that out over the course of a year. But now if you were to take a 2-year ROI, a return on investment, so if you were to, let's just say 4 years, so if you were to take that, divide that by 48, which would be a 4-year thing, you're at that point only spending less than $5 a month. And over here, no matter what, you're going to be spending, the higher amount per month. So I'll show you that math. This is just a quick show you that basically it depends on your budget and depends on your books if you prefer to, spend less money up front, but then you have more monthly fees, or if you're interested in spending more up front on the CapEx side, uh, and then reducing your operating expenses or OPEX. So it depends on if you're more CapEx or OPEX concerned or centric. So, yeah, I mean, it really depends. So, what are your thoughts, Bill? I feel like I've been talking for a while, so I wanted to get your thoughts.
Oh, well, I'm gonna be honest, that was a little confusing. It seemed informative, but, I guess, from what I got out of that is just literally you're just saying it's $10 a month, but you're paying that forever. So basically, it can just add up. But it's kind of nice because it's a cheaper cost up front.
Yeah, actually, that's true. Very well put.
Okay, well then, yeah, I mean, I also understood that if I spend more up front, the $229 per person, if I was to look at it on a 4-year type of spread, that yes, I mean, my per month amount is actually half, but, the thing is, I mean, that operating expense is a factor, so I'm trying to, get going and reduce my capital expense, really, so I think I might do the same old thing that everyone seems to be doing, which is to do the monthly fee. So I think I'll actually end up signing up for the Office 365 and not actually, buy the software. I'll just basically rent the software month by month, like you said. Okay, well, yeah, let's do that. Actually, yeah, I'm certain that's exactly what I want to do.
Okay, well, that's great. Totally understand. So what we're gonna sign up for is probably this deal right here because you don't really need a lot of the extra features you're getting here. I won't bore you with all the details, but yeah, based on your requirements, I would say that you'll be fine with just the business user, because really you just need your different applications, and you need OneDrive for your storage. So I think that'll be fine. Um, Actually, Bill, I might have misspoken here. We didn't talk about the type of mail storage you'll be using. One of the main factors nowadays is you want to use Exchange email, which is actually quite a bit better than the old fashioned pop email that used to be popular years ago. Exchange means that all of your email actually is stored on the server side. So it's actually really nice because if you are using a web browser, or if you're using your phone and using email that way, or if you switch back to a different computer, everything is stored centrally, so you just have access to the same information no matter what, which is really nice. So at that point, we might actually be better off with going with this solution right here, because it's a cheaper dollar amount per month. However, you're also getting exchange with it. Here, you're not getting exchange, but you're getting the software. So it's kind of tricky. This seems like the better deal, but this actually is the better deal, because if you were to take this extra amount per month, the 750, which is the difference between this and this, that would actually really add up, because you would need to really buy that software for $229 per person, and over 4 years, if you really think about it, the $5 per month here, plus if we look at this math, if you were to buy the software, the $229, and average it out over 4 years, I mean, you're spending another $470 or five, so your total would be about 10 per month, really. Although here you're not having to spend that upfront capex. So I guess it's really up to you, Bill. What would you prefer?
Well, now I guess I feel like we had a really good solution, so it's just seemingly a little more expensive because yeah, I do like that exchange email option you talked about because it is really important for me to be able to use my email anywhere, and I don't want to have to deal with having email stored on the local computer and things of that nature. So, yeah, I think even though you make a compelling argument that this plus buying the software might be more cost effective, I think I'm still leaning towards having this price point right here because it's just easier and it's still going to reduce my upfront expenses. Because really, I mean, I'm just a four-person company, so 12.50 times four, what is that? $50 a month. That's not too bad for a small company to have all the software that we ever want and have all the benefits of, like you said, the better email system. So, yeah, I think I'm okay with this solution right here.
Well, okay, Bill, that sounds just perfect. Yeah, there's a lot of other benefits here, too. So, since we're going with this package, not only do you get the Exchange, which is the really good email system, you get the OneDrive, which is a fantastic way to back up all of your software and have your file systems all in one place so everyone can access it. You get SharePoint, which you may or may not use, but it is a good tool to keep in mind for the future as far as storing lots of interesting intranet sites with all kinds of company information. You could set up portals and things of that nature, might be a little bit overkill for a four-person company, but in the future, you never know. Maybe for customers. So we'll talk about that later. Also, Skype for Business is a fantastic piece of software where you can actually do things like schedule conference calls. You could do screen sharing. You can connect to people remotely if you want to help them out. You can chat with each other, so it's all built in. So it's really nice for chat and things like that. Does that make sense so far, Bill? I know I've been talking a lot. I want to really give you an opportunity to ask any questions.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. Currently I've been using Gmail, so I think Gmail has a chat feature, which I honestly don't use a whole lot. So it's good to know that with this chat built into this and screen sharing, which would be nice also. So yeah, I guess overall I'm quite satisfied with this Office 365 bundle right here. So let's just do that.
All right, well, great, Bill. Thanks for that. That's perfect. A couple other things that I really want to talk about is we also noticed that you don't have a phone system. So is that something you're interested in, or how are you planning on having you and those three other employees actually, do things like take calls from customers and things of that nature?
Well, the thing is, I don't know. I mean, I have been using my cell phone for years, so now that I'm going to have these new employees, I guess I do need a phone system. So, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of choices here. I highly recommend a cloud based system just because it's much easier to maintain than having to have your own infrastructure in house. They call it on premises. You don't really want to have on premises equipment unless you have to. There's generally a good price point where once you have, let's say, 50 employees or so, it makes sense to have that infrastructure in house because it gets expensive when you pay a monthly fee per user. But when you only have four people, at that point, you're far better off using the cloud solution because you pay them a fee and they do all the maintenance for you. You don't need to train anyone on how to use a phone system, and you just don't have that many users, so it's really not a big deal. So let me just kind of show you some options since I'm sharing my screen. I'm just gonna look up VoIP phone service for business, and so there's a bunch of really popular ones. Actually, I'll just look up VoIP service. Let's see here. Let's try for business. There we go. So as you can see, there's a bunch of different ones. You've got ShoreTel, you've got Vonage. I'm sure you've heard of Vonage before. They do a lot of advertising. Ring Central. There's a lot of features, which really we don't need to get into all the details of what. I just wanted to ask you some basic questions. So, for example, when customers call in, are you anticipating having them hear any kind of menu like "Welcome to Bell's Tax Services"? Press 1 for the accounting department. Press 2 for personal taxes. Press 3 for business taxes, or something along those lines. Or is this just going to be a simple? You call, you get access to the receptionist, or are each of you going to have a direct number, which is called a DID, or how does that work?
Well, that's a good question. I guess I'm not really sure what all these different features are, like hunt or call center. I guess I like to hunt, but I don't think it's the same kind of hunt. pretty sure not talking about deer here. So, yeah, I guess I'm not sure what IVR and auto attendant is either, but yeah, I guess I honestly haven't put a lot of thought into it. I suppose it would make sense for each person to have their own phone number that a customer could call because honestly, each of my tax preparers are going to have their own customers that I'm going to divvy up. So I think it would actually be really nice to have separate phone numbers for them. And as far as a some kind of menu, I guess I would like to have a menu of some sort so that let's say if it's a brand new customer that we have never talked to, they call our main number and it goes through a quick menu and they can pick residential or personal or business taxes or something of that nature would be good. But also I would like each of our each of our tax preparers to have their own number. Um, does that make sense then?
Yeah, I mean, perfectly. That makes a lot of sense. So, I guess one question I did have is, did you want each person to have their own voicemail? I mean, it seems like a fairly basic feature. Of course, I would imagine if someone calls and they're not there, you'd want it to go to voicemail. But I just want to ask you.
Oh yeah, I mean yeah, I think it would be quite odd if they didn't have voicemail. So yes, please add voicemail.
Okay, great. And then, this IVR, auto attendant, it sounds all fancy schmancy, but really, all it is it's just a simple, that's just a term for a menu. So that's just literally saying, welcome to Bill's tax haven, press 1 for this, 2 for that. So we'll make sure we include the auto attendant, conferencing, and things of that nature. Do you see yourself needing that type of thing in the future?
Honestly, I don't. I think that that's kind of overkill if you ask me, because my customers aren't going to need to conference with each other or things like that. So I think I'll just skip that.
Great. So I think I get a pretty good idea for what you want. I mean, I could go through all these different features, but I don't really want to waste your time because it seems like what you're really looking for is a very basic phone system that allows everyone to have their own phone number, allows everyone to have voicemail, and then you want a simple menu for the main number. Now, is that about right?
Yeah, that's exactly the type of thing that I want. So yeah, let's just move forward with that. I think you get a pretty good idea as far as what I want. So yeah, let's move forward.
Well, thanks, Bill. There is one other thing. So you mentioned related to the phone system that you wanted to have faxing because customers have to fax you and you need to fax the IRS and things of that nature. So, what I'm proposing is that we just build that into the phone system. Each of these vendors that you see up here, they all support IP based faxing, so that is actually just a fancy way of saying that you don't need a fax machine. The phone system will be able to do it just over the internet, so to speak. So you don't need to have separate phone lines dedicated for fax and things of that nature. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, if you're telling me that I don't need to order a separate phone line, that's great. That's one less thing for me to worry about. So yeah, you can build it into the phone system. Let's do that.
All right, sounds great. So we're making really good progress. I really appreciate your feedback so far. There's still a few more things to cover. Um, let's see. So as far as the Wi-Fi, now you mentioned that the company, or the landlord, sorry, supports a very cost effective Wi Fi at $20 a month, and it's shared with all the other tenants. Now, could you give me your thoughts on that?
Well, I talked to Ted, and I think he was mentioning that maybe that's not such a good idea, but it just seemed like a good deal. $20 a month, and I don't have to worry about anything. Sounds great. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, yes, it is great. I do agree that it's a very good price. However, there are a lot of drawbacks to that, so I'll just give you a couple of examples of things that you really would need to be aware of if you went with a shared solution like that. So, for one, um, you don't really know how many people are going to be using the system, and I'm sure you've run into things like someone downloading a bunch of music, and then all of a sudden all of your bandwidth is taken up. Things like that. You would have very little control of the quality of your connection, and with all those employees, you'd have three employees there too. The four of you may have a lot of issues, so that may not be good at all. Also, it would be very difficult to have something like shared files that are available on that same network, because well, everyone would be able to see them. Now, given we can have certain security measures in place, but you're basically on an open system at that point, and everyone can see what everyone is doing. And I'm just imagining, also, because you're having very sensitive data like people's tax records and social security numbers, that you really don't want that kind of liability for that to fall on the wrong hands. So, for those reasons and some others, I would highly recommend not doing a shared Wi Fi. And I would actually get your own internet circuit and your own wireless setup that is going to be completely dedicated for that purpose. Now, does that make some sense?
Well, I suppose it does, especially from the liability standpoint. I'm just a little afraid of how much this is going to cost me. So, yeah, I mean, what is it going to look like?
Oh yeah, I mean I understand it's a concern, but honestly nowadays the prices for internet have really dropped significantly, so it's not going to be as substantial of a cost as you may have anticipated. Now I will warn you that the business lines are generally more expensive than the residential lines, even for the same type of service. So, like, for example, what do you have at home?
Oh, I use Comcast internet. I don't even know what it is, honestly. My wife ordered it, years ago, and I use that for my home business.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. So, yeah, I mean, Comcast has also residential and commercial. So, let's actually take a look and see what the Comcast business internet costs look like. If you don't mind going through this with me. So, yeah, let's take a look here. So, if we look at the Comcast, depending on how much speed you need, there are some pretty cost effective solutions. I mean, for example, this 25 meg internet is fine. I mean, depending on what you're going to be doing with it, really. So, yeah, why don't you tell me a little bit more about what you plan on doing over the internet, and then I could help to figure out which of these options might be the best for you.
Well, I guess I'm not really sure what you mean by what I'm going to be doing, but I guess I'm going to be doing what everyone does on the internet, which is check email and do some research, Google some things. I'm sure that some of my other employees will look up certain things on YouTube as far as business development wise or whatnot. Maybe some streaming music, things like that. So yeah, I mean, nothing too out of the ordinary, I would say.
Oh yes, that makes sense. I anticipated you saying that. I just wanted to make sure I didn't assume anything. So I would say just for the four of you, it would probably be fine to use this internet here, the 25 megs per second internet. If you were to increase the number of employees, I would say even to like 10 or so, it might become an issue just because, you really do want to have at least 5 meg per person in case people are looking at videos, like you said. But yeah, I think it would be fine. So if you'd like to save the $30 a month between these two packages, I would understand. However, if you were to look at getting 3 times the bandwidth for only 30% more cost, it's actually a phenomenal rate of return, mathematically speaking. But it really just depends on what you're thinking for budget. I would say you'd be quite future proofed here because you could scale to 10 employees easily with this internet right here. And it's actually a really good deal, honestly, for this amount of bandwidth. So I guess, what do you think, Bill?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess $100 a month isn't bad for internet service, and I guess being future proofed would be nice. I just don't want to unnecessarily pay if I don't need to. So, I guess I'm not 100% sure. Let me think here.
Well, Bill, if in doubt, I would actually just make it based on a budget, really. So, like, is that within budget? Is that what you were thinking of spending?
Well, honestly, I didn't know what I would be spending because I honestly didn't think of having business internet and things of that nature when I first went down this road of hiring the new employees. So, you know what? I like what you're thinking as far as being future proofed, and also you mentioned it's a really good return, being that you're getting 3 times the bandwidth for only 30% more cost. So, yeah, let's actually move forward with this 75 meg internet for roughly $100 a month. I think that sounds pretty good. So let's just do that.
Well, perfect, Bill. I think you'll definitely be happy that we did this. I think that's perfectly long term minded of you, so it'll definitely pay dividends. The other thing that I wanted to cover before we get into specific software is, what are these 3 people you mentioned? What are they going to actually do on a day-to-day basis? And also, are they going to have their own laptops that you're going to have them bring into the business, or are you going to provide them with laptops, or are they going to have desktops that are from Bill's tax haven, or how does that, what were you anticipating or preparing for as far as that?
Well, you keep on asking me questions I don't quite know. Geez, I guess I was unsure of that. I didn't ask them if they have their own laptops they could bring in. Do you think that would be fine for me to just have them bring in their own laptops, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, there is no right or wrong answer, honestly, especially for a small business. Sometimes reducing your costs and just doing something simple isn't always a bad idea. I mean, I'm just saying that I would personally think through some of the liabilities of having someone bring in their personal laptop. So some things I would think about are, things like malware and viruses and things like that are very prevalent, unfortunately, these days, where let's say someone is using their personal laptop that they were using at home, or maybe their kid decides to download some illegal software or whatnot from some peer-to-peer site, and then now all of a sudden they're bringing that laptop and they're connecting it to your network at the office, which they may or may not be downloading sensitive information about customer records and things of that nature. So, I mean, there is no guarantee that any of that may happen. Maybe you will never have that happen, and maybe all of your employees would be perfectly fine and never do anything like that, but, you just don't know. So, I personally would rather them have corporate assets. I would rather have them have corporate laptops or corporate desktops. So that's kind of a separate liability and control based decision. And then there's a secondary decision as far as desktops are, a little bit more cost effective, but not as flexible because you can't take them home, obviously. So, depending on if these people are going to be working from home, I would then go down the corporate laptop route. So, does that make sense, Bill? I just want to make sure I answered your question there.
Yeah, you make a really good point. I'm almost embarrassed that I didn't think of that, being that this is very sensitive data. I guess I was just trying to think of the most cost effective way of doing this. So, I guess overall, why don't we just move forward with laptops, the corporate laptops, because you're right, I don't really want to have any kind of liability, and I do anticipate them working from home, so it makes sense. If I'm hiring them, I might as well have them have their own, asset, like you said, corporate asset.
Yeah, and what we can do is we can have a standardized image, is what they call it, where it's a standard set of software that is on that laptop so that it's incredibly consistent, and every employee you ever hire will just be able to immediately use the system and not have any technology issues, and we'll make sure that it's very simple for you also.
Well, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that.
Okay, well, that's perfect. So now that takes me to the other question as far as printing. So you mentioned that you have an older HP LaserJet. Can you look on that thing and see if it's got a network card on it? Because you mentioned that you currently connect it directly to the old laptop that you have, which works fine when you're at home and you're printing, but if you're going to bring this to the office and you want the other three people to print, we're going to have this on the network somehow. So I just wanted to, just have you double check that. Are you in front of that HP printer?
Oh, yes, I am. What are you saying as far as this network card?
Well, let me pull up a picture real quick. So, you mentioned it's a HP LaserJet 4100. So, does it look a little bit like that?
Yep, that's exactly it.
Okay, well, let's just see what a network card for this looks like. So, yeah, I mean, this is a picture of the Jet Direct card that you can put into the back of your printer, and then you can connect it to a network so that everyone can print to it without having to, bug you to print things for them or requiring your laptop to be on in order for them to print. But really, that depends on if that's something that's important to you. Do you foresee that as an issue as far as if you become a bottleneck for printing?
Yeah, I think I already told Ted that I am not interested in that. So let's move forward with a network-based solution for this. So let's go ahead and order up one of these Jet Direct cards because I don't see one of these on the back of my printer. So yeah, that's perfectly fine.
All right, well, that's great. So I think we have that figured out. The follow up question I have as far as printing is do you need color printing ever? I believe you told Ted that you generally don't, but I figured since we're talking, I should really incorporate any future needs that you have. Maybe look at a second printer for color or things of that nature. Just really depends on volume, also.
Yeah. I I don't anticipate needing to print color except maybe once a quarter for promotional material, and I usually just go down to the Kinkos or Office Max or things like that, and it's really not a whole lot of cost, and I just don't want to spend a bunch of money on a color printer if I don't need to. So yeah, I think that's about it for printing, really.
Yep, I definitely understand that. That pretty much covers my concerns about printing. So now the next set of questions have to do with the desktop that you discussed with Ted as far as what software we're gonna have on it, and also I wanted to confirm it was a desktop instead of a laptop. So a few follow up questions there. So one main question is really, you mentioned that at this point the three employees we're going to provide them with corporate laptops. You mentioned that you have an old laptop. Now, what are the specs of that laptop? Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
Oh goodness, I think that laptop was from 1999. It's running Windows 98 or something like that. It's quite ancient to be honest, but it still works. All I really do is do internet browsing on it and some really basic things. I don't really plan on using it long term.
Oh, okay. Well, then, are you planning on getting a new laptop, or what do you think?
Well, yeah, I was just actually going to go over to Micro Center and pick up a laptop at some point here. So, yeah, I was just kind of thinking of that as a completely different thing, really.
Well, honestly, we could probably build this all into the same proposal and save you some time and probably money also by us procuring that laptop along with the other ones also. So that could be part of our whole holistic type of game plan. But that's really up to you. I mean, if you would like to do it yourself, I understand. It's just I might be able to uh, come up with a more consistent, standardized type of laptop for everyone so that support of these laptops become much easier for you because they would all be the same. So it really depends if that's important to you to have a simple way of supporting your laptops.
Oh boy, well, since you put it that way, I guess I don't really want to be dealing with support issues, and I guess I didn't think about that. That if all of the laptops are different, that would be pretty difficult to support. So, yeah, why don't you just, add that to the scope of this project as far as procuring a laptop for me and the other three people?
Perfect. So you mentioned that you guys are just going to be using basic Microsoft Office software and the tax software and the payroll software. So really, this laptop doesn't have to be state of the art or anything like that. A fairly basic laptop is pretty cost effective these days. I don't want to bore you with all the details as far as the CPU and RAM and all that kind of stuff. What I'll do is I will use my best judgment and I'll simply send you a couple of different options if you'd like, or I can just pick one that I feel very confident would work for what you need and would be a good price point. I'm just gonna go on a limb and say that we could definitely find a sufficient one for definitely under $800 a person. Sometimes even more along the $600 to $700 price point, depending on what we come up with. So it's not going to be anything crazy. these days for a good solid laptop. So for the four of you, I would say that would be pretty safe.
Well, yeah, that sounds good. I was mentally thinking of spending about 600 or so per laptop. So if you can get one that is even better for that price, then yeah, I'm definitely all for it. So that's great.
Okay, perfect. So now this kind of takes us to the software and also the main desktop. So you mentioned that you wanted to use QuickBooks Professional, and I was doing a little bit of research about this. So if you were to look up QuickBooks Pro versus QuickBooks Online, there's some interesting comparisons as far as features and also price points. I'm assuming you've already looked into this, so I guess what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I have looked at it, and honestly, the biggest reason why we are thinking of QuickBooks Pro is because they have much better support for multiple customers and multiple customer types. So we have some pretty advanced features as far as the need to set up different types of accounting structures. And I don't want to bore you with the accounting lingo, but basically, QuickBooks Online, even though it's really easy, it doesn't provide some of the advanced features that we're looking for. So it's just one of those things where I need to actually uh, use the desktop version.
Okay, well that's fine because as you can see, there are a lot of extra features with the online version. So my thoughts are that we get it as far as the desktop version because we have to for the features you're looking for. But I would like to suggest using perhaps the cloud hosting option or perhaps the data backup, which is only $10 a month. Reason I bring this up is I have seen customers in the past use desktop versions, and they just sometimes forget to do the backups, even if I set up a process for them. And then it could be pretty severe if you were to have a hard drive failure, which does happen, and you didn't do the backup. So I feel like this would give you a lot of peace of mind as far as using the cloud backup software. And that way, you don't have to worry about that. Now, you could also have the cloud hosting, it looks like, for, probably it's going to be $100 a month, which is a lot. I understand that would be, 1200 if that was the case, where you could still have the desktop software but have it hosted in the cloud, and then you don't have to worry about having a server or a higher end desktop on at your office, I should say. But that was a lot to take in. Does that make sense, Bill?
Well, to be honest, no, it does not make any sense, that last part as far as the cloud access. I thought the whole thing was the desktop version isn't on the cloud, I was understanding, and the online version is on the cloud. So how does that actually make any sense? I mean, the data backup, I understand. I do like the $9.99 per month because you're right. I probably would forget to do the backup, or my staff would forget. We're not IT people. We just want to do our business and move on. So I do like that. But yeah, how does this become a cloud hosted thing if it's the desktop version of it?
Well, actually, that is a common misconception is that if you have a desktop version of a software that it could not be cloud based. Now think of it this way: if you have a desktop that you have running that is got the software installed on it, you can actually make what's called a virtual machine, or basically a virtual version of that exact desktop. And then you could have it hosted by a company like Microsoft, Azure, or there's a bunch of them. There's Amazon Web Services and several options that, and actually Intuit really probably uses one of those in the back end, and they charge you an amount per month. So at that point, you have all the features of the desktop version, but none of the headaches as far as maintaining, the actual PC or server at your site. Another factor is if you were to have the server or desktop on site, in order to access it, you would have to set up VPN or remote access. So, is that something you've thought about? And did that answer actually make any sense?
Well, I don't know anything about VPN, but yeah, I guess it does make sense as far as the cloud access. So if it's $100 a month, I'm going to be spending $1,200 a month $1,200 a year every year for this software, which would add up. So I mean, I'm not loving that, but what do you think as far as having just a powerful desktop that's on premises and I could just support that?
Well, like I said, I mean, it's fine. If we do the automatic backups, that would alleviate one of my biggest concerns. And yes, I mean, I understand your costs would be much higher if you were to do the cloud access for the desktop software. So I would say uh, you could have the desktop that we buy. We could get a really nice one that I'm sure for definitely less than $1,500, you could have one that is really powerful, and that would be a one-time cost versus spending $1,200 or more a year for every year moving forward. So those are really the two different numbers. If it was me, to be honest, I would probably recommend the cloud access just because you just don't want to deal with unnecessary hardware issues and things like that yourself if you don't have to. And because you're such a small company, I just don't want to distract you with unnecessary IT things to worry about with your staff. So that's really where I'm coming from. Now, if you do have someone that is fairly savvy, it's also fairly basic to just maintain a decent desktop. So you could save money, but you gain some extra headaches. So that's really where I'm at. So what are your thoughts, Bill?
Well, after hearing everything that you've had to say, I do have to draw the line, even though I don't want to deal with extra headaches. I don't really have an infinite budget either. So I'm actually going to choose to do the desktop. So I want you to price out a desktop that would be powerful enough to support the software that we need and just have it at the office, and then we'll just have the VPN or whatever you said set up, and we'll just move forward with that. I just don't want to be spending $100 to $200 a month because we will have a lot of access since we have a lot of customers. So I'm assuming that we're going to be on the higher end of that scale because really, if you think about at the 200, I mean that's a lot. We're talking about $2,400 every year, and I could just have a one-time cost of, like you said, 1,500 a year, which is great, or 1,500 just that first time, and then I have no overhead moving forward except for whatever maintenance occurs on that server. So I think overall, I would rather reduce my OPEX or operating expenses by just doing the one-time procurement of a desktop. So I'm glad you educated me on this though, because it's definitely something I didn't think about when I was first looking at the features of the desktop version.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand. So, yep, that makes sense. We'll move forward with the desktop. One thing I will recommend is that we get a UPS, which is a uninterrupted power supply. Have you ever heard of that, Bill?
To be honest, I have not. I've just used a power strip. I don't know about a power supply though. So, why do I need that?
Well, think of it as a the battery for your laptop. I believe you talked with Ted about this too. So it's just literally in case power goes out, it's a safety mechanism so that your desktop doesn't just shut down and potentially damage your software. They're really not expensive either, so it's kind of a no-brainer.
Okay, well then, if that's the case, then go ahead. Let's include the UPS also.
All right, perfect. So at this point, I can just put together the specs of the desktop. I don't need to bore you with all the details. I'll make sure that it will definitely suffice for QuickBooks Pro and everything else, and that it'll be reliable for you. The other piece of software that you mentioned, the Lacert, which was the tax software, and also ADP, which is cloud based. That'll be fine. I will add those to the quote because I believe you have not procured those yet. Is that correct?
No, I have not procured them yet. So if you could actually add that to the quote, that would be great. I would definitely appreciate that.
As far as Microsoft Office, since we already covered that with the Office 365 suite, you'll be getting all of the Microsoft Office along with your email hosting and also your data storage using OneDrive. So that was pretty much a three birds with one stone type of thing. So I think we pretty much covered all of that. At this point, I'm feeling pretty good that we've got all of your needs covered. What other questions do you have for me at this point?
I guess what are the next steps in this whole process? I mean, we spent a whole bunch of time going over the requirements and whatnot, but what's next?
Yeah, so, as far as what I would be doing is now that we figured out the requirements, I would put together a proposal, and then you would review the proposal, and then if you were to approve the proposal, we would move forward and we would create a statement of work document, which would kind of highlight the major objectives of the project and what deliverables will be had within the project. We would have a high level design document, which would break down some more details for you, basically. We would have a bill of materials, which is really part of the high level design, that would have all of the parts and components and software all broken down so you could keep track of all of your expenses and write offs, things of that nature. And then you would also have the project plan and implementation plan that would show you all the different milestones of the project along with timelines and critical path items within the project. So that's just all the different work deliverables we would produce. After a review of all those, then you would, if approved, you would sign off on the statement of work, and then you and Ted would work out the payment terms and things like that. And then after that, we could actually begin work and complete the project per the project plan. So yeah, I mean that was a mouthful. I said a lot there. Does that make a lot of sense, or do you have any questions, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my one question is, I appreciate all this due diligence, but I mean, that seems like an excessive amount of documentation. Now, am I going to pay a lot because I'm having you create all this documentation? I mean, you seem like a smart kid and you know what you're doing, so why do I need to have you create all this documentation if you can just do the statement of work and just do it?
Well, that is I appreciate the compliment, Bill. Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel confident that I could do a great job for you. But honestly, a lot of the details it's for your benefit, and it's for your peace of mind to know that we have thought through all the details. Even if we didn't actually give them to you, we would actually create it for ourselves because if you don't create a high level design, and if you don't put together a bill of materials, you would just be more winging it and you would be more susceptible to making mistakes, which would actually cost you more. So we've kind of learned that over the years that you're actually being penny wise, pound foolish by trying to cut costs and cut corners by not producing those documents. The documents actually end up helping us and the customer, so that's why we do it that way.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I guess now that you put it that way, it's much like how customers sometimes don't want me to put together extra documentation when they're doing their taxes, but really, if I don't, I'm actually going to take longer and it's actually going to cost them even more money. So I am actually understanding what you're saying there. So, yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, thank you for answering all my questions.
Yeah, no problem, Bill. So, that was really it as far as my question for you. I feel like we're in a really good spot. I understand exactly what you need. I'll be putting together the proposal, which would be that first step, sending it over to you so that you can review it, and then, we'll just kind of go from there. Do you have any final questions, Bill?
No, actually, I feel great at this point. I think we can just move forward. Thank you for your time there, gentlemen. Yep, this is Ted here, also, Bill, and thank you so much, Trainee01. I think you did a great job. I was just sitting back in case there were questions, but seems like everyone got everything that they needed out of this call. Bill, if you need to reach out to me, Ted here, definitely feel free. But we put one of our best folks on this project. Trainee01's an excellent technician. He will definitely take care of you. So definitely feel free to reach out to either of us. We'll definitely keep you up to speed and update you on progress. Next step, like Trainee01 mentioned, was to put together the proposal. So we'll definitely keep in touch, Bill. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and cancel the WebEx meeting since we're done, but I'll talk to everyone soon. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk soon.
Yes, likewise. Thanks. Very nice to meet everyone.
Okay, so now I'm going out of character. So as the manager, Ted would now end the meeting. Everyone would get kicked out of the WebEx. And at that point, yeah, we're basically done with this particular part of the project because now, as the technician, Trainee01 really understands all of the needs that the customer has. We had this really simple list of concerns or questions. Now, I'm going to show you kind of this Visio that I put together ahead of time. This is just one way you could do it. I will show you how to make one from scratch. So if you just open up Visio, which you can open up by just literally typing Visio like this. And if you open it up and you open up a new Visio, and you can just do blank drawing, create. So if you were to do this and you were to move this to 100%, you can literally use the shapes that are here. So your general shapes, basic shapes. And if you were to just take the rectangle and drag it out here, you can right click, copy and paste again. And if you see, if you hold it together like that, if you drag it, it'll like auto align. So you can basically make a bunch of these. You can hold control, copy both of them, right click, copy, paste. So you can basically put together this data, right? So you can basically mirror the same thing. So if you look at this diagram, you could type the same thing in. This is just a way to organize it. So you could, type, for example, domain, bills, taxhaven.com. Right? So you can see how literally you just drag these boxes out. You can align them. You can type in them. So I want you to basically make a new Visio, just like I showed you how to do here, but I'm not going to take you through every step now. So I want you to actually, well, for one, don't make typos here either. Not Taven, but Bill's, whoops, Tax Haven. Oh, never mind, it wasn't a typo. So yeah, just literally take this. So take a moment to document these different boxes, because I'm going to actually populate all these costs and just send it as a quick email to to bill in a cute little, format like this with little boxes or whatever, and then it was just a way for me to keep track of this stuff. So I want you to recreate this thing right here by yourself after you saw the process for opening up Visio and creating a basic Visio. And then later on, when we get to sending it, you'll be able to, follow those same steps. So this is really kind of how you go from literally a phone call or an email, actually, a bunch of emails to eventually getting to the point of narrowing down the requirements and now really close to being able to put together a proposal. So again, that was a lot of information. I'm hoping that this wasn't too fast or that it was easy to understand. I hope that my really poor accents were easy to keep track of, because I was trying to make sure you understood that they were different characters and different roles. So again, if you have any questions, please make sure to ask a trainer, and we'll take care of everything that you want to know. It's really important to understand that this is not exactly what you would do for a help desk job. This is actually a little bit more advanced. This is more of a project type of job, but if you understand this, then you'll be able to understand customer service and also technology, and you'll understand that in a company there are these types of projects going on, and those same users are the people that call into the help desk. So this is to give you context and also to get you to communicate a lot and understand what phone calls and emails look like and how to think through a project. So thanks again, everyone. We'll see you on the next video.